Hi, I'm Terry Kimball, President and CEO at the Chandler Chamber. And joining me with us today is Joseph Yang. He is a candidate for Chandler City Council. Welcome, Joseph.
Thank you so much for having me, Terry. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Great. So, Joseph, we're going to start off by talking a little bit about what really motivated you to run for Chandler City Council. Why don't you tell our business community?
Absolutely. What motivated me to run was two things. I guess the first one is to continue serving the community that I've grown up serving. That's my background. My history is just services community. I was the president of the teen advisory board for the library for 5 years, and then I received an award from the president of the United States there while for my volunteer service to Chandler. And then I went from there to the police department's operational support bureau, jumped over to starting my own nonprofit, and to currently where I'm at, I serve the residents on the police commission. So that's always what it's been for me, is just continuing to serve our community. And the second part is, the next generation, the youth of our community. I think that they need someone that can relate to them, number one, and number two, but also bring them the resources. I want to build that bridge and connect that gap of the next generation and our city. And I think that that's what's really important to me. When I was starting my nonprofit and getting involved, it wasn't always easy. There were some people that were very dismissive or just not helpful. And I want to make sure that all the future leaders of our community have someone that they can call that has been through what they're either going through or want to go through and seek advice from. And I'd love to help them get involved in our city and become the next future leaders. And I want to make that an open door for them, an open door that I didn't have.
Well, and that was part of the second part of my
Oh,
question,
perfect.
which were you reading my notes?
I don't know. I might have been.
No, and I'm going to let you add to it. What unique perspectives or experiences do you have that really kind of set you apart from the other candidates?
Absolutely. So my unique experiences that I would feel I bring is, number one, I have and I tell people I've got a wide breadth of experience in the city, from the police department to the library system and I work for the Parks and Rec division. So I've got a very unique experience. Specifically, there's no other candidate or council member that has worked for the city's Parks and Rec division at an entry-level position like I have for the city when I was about 16 years old. And so I bring that perspective of really being in the trenches of the city and knowing what the city employees are feeling. I was actually an employee in 2020 when we had the mask mandates and the shutdowns. And so I got to see firsthand how that really affected our city staff. I mean, it's easy for us to get a report from, the directors and the head honchos, but I got to see firsthand how the actual employees in the trenches were seeing it and feeling. Not to mention, I have the experience of being young. I bring a new set of ideas. I bring a new set of energy to the city council, and I'm really excited to just dive in and look at all the different things that I can bring to the city from that perspective.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about how have you adequately prepared yourself to run for Chandler City Council?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So I don't know if you can ever really prepare yourself. I tell everyone it's like a never-ending. You say it's a run, but it's really a sprint that just never ends. But I've adequately prepared myself by talking to the neighbors, talking to the residents. I think that's really important to me. I know there's a bunch of people that can go and pay to get signatures for you, but I got. Out of the 1,000, I got about 800 to 900 of those signatures on my own because I like to engage with the residents. I like to talk to them, and I like to earn their signature. It's always one thing to just pay someone to go out and get signatures, but for me, I like to connect with them. I like to hear what they're going through. I've served on the police commission, and so I've really gotten to get a good understanding of our city, its community, and its neighbors, and I think that's what's most important. At the city council level, it's like the most local level of government. I don't know how often you've seen Governor Hobbs in the store or you've seen Senator Kelly, Senator Sinema in the stores, but I can bet you've probably seen the mayor or a council member walking the streets of downtown Chandler or going to the grocery store because they are your neighbors. We are your neighbors, and I think that's really the best way to prepare yourself for city council is just talking with the residents and always reminding yourself that you're here to serve them.
So let's talk a little bit, expand on that. How do you foster a positive working relationship with the business community and the Chamber of Commerce?
Absolutely. I think the Chamber of Commerce it plays a vital role in the business world of whatever city we're in. And I think that the chambers are important because you guys are really I think the way I view the chamber is you guys are the representation for the business community to all forms of government. It's hard for mom and pop shops when they're working long hours. My parents were small business owners. I'm a small business owner. And it's hard. It's hard to take away from doing, if you have brick and mortar like my parents did. They can't just stop what they're doing and go to the Capitol and testify on something that's important and affects their business. They can't stop what they're doing and go to a council meeting and represent their business. So it's important that we have chambers across the valley that can go to their business community, to the mom and pop shop, to the small business owners, and understand what they're going through and bring their concerns to the city. And I forgot the question. I'm describing why a chamber is important. What was the question?
About fostering those relationships.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's important that we have important relationships. And I'd love to work with the chamber. I think building that bridge with the next generation also tops onto one of my bullet points, which is developing the workforce. I have actually, my nonprofit was based in Gilbert, and so I got involved with the Gilbert Chamber primarily because my business was based in Gilbert, but now that I'm in, no, my nonprofit was in Gilbert. And so I've gotten involved with the Business and Education Committee in Gilbert, and I got to learn and see, and talking with business owners in Chandler as well. They always say that we're in a silver tsunami. Businesses are losing employees faster than they can get them. And I think that is a direct correlation with developing our workforce. We got to foster, and it's not just the city can do it on their own or the chamber can do it on their own, but we got to work with the chamber and the business communities because I want to make the CTE programs that we have in our city more robust. As the largest employer, I think it really behooves the city to work with the chamber and look at how we can foster strong work ethics, because if our workforce starts to go away, then it hurts the businesses. And then without businesses, we don't have a strong city. And so I think that's why it's important to foster those relationships. And I look forward to continuing to work with the business community and the chamber to make sure that those are strong partnerships.
Great. So the city has just over $1 billion budget. What in your background really gives you experiences in that size of budget? Because that's pretty sizable budget.
It's a big budget, and I love that question because I think there's a kind of a misconception. I've had a couple people while I'm door knocking, and I've had to clarify this because they've asked, what experience do you have with the $1 billion budget? And I tell them, I say, look, a lot of candidates and a lot of council members, not just in Chandler but across the state, wouldn't have experience, managing a $1 billion budget unless you wouldn't account for Intel or Northrop Grumman and you're one of those big companies. And so what you're not electing me to prepare that budget, to prepare the money or the finance, because if you did that, I don't think that'd be good for the city. I don't have a finance background. But the city has accountants, and the city has people that lay out that budget and bring it forward to mayor and council. What you're voting me in to do is look at that budget and be a good steward of the money that the people of Chandler have provided through their taxes. And so, I look at that question, and it's not about, and I like to clarify it, because it's not about a finance, what's your finance background? I like to say, I have a background that helps with that because of my not lower, but, in the trenches experience, working for the city's Parks and Rec division, volunteering over 5,000 hours with the Chandler Police Department. I've gotten to see some of the things that work, some of the things that don't. And so I have the ability to question things when we look at the budget and say, hey, why are we spending this much on this particular thing? When I was working in that little area, I don't think this is the right number. Can we look into that more? Or, whoa, this is what they do with this amount of money. Like, can we see what we can do to bump that up a little bit? And so I think that's why, and that's, I think, the background that's prepared me for the city is I know this. I have a wide breadth of experience in the city, and I've got a wide-ranging, scope of seeing things, being with all the various departments. And so, when I look at that, I think that's what best prepares me to look at that budget. It's not about, and I tell people that all the time, it's not about really the finance. You're not electing people to make the budget. You're electing them to review it and be good stewards of the money. And I think that is And I think that's what it is having an understanding of what the role is as a council member, but also having that experience all throughout the city, from police department to Parks and Rec to the library system. And I think that's what really prepares me to look at the budget and ask the right questions so that we are using the money and allocating it properly.
So tell me a little bit about what attributes you will bring to Chandler City Council from a business perspective.
From a business perspective, the attributes that I bring is, and I love to say this, is I'm resilient, I'm resourceful, and I'm also innovative. Well, I guess that's kind of the same thing. So we'll go with
You
courageous.
can pick more than three.
Okay, well, I like three. We like to narrow on three, but I guess that is what I would say, because resilient. I love that word because if there's something that I want to see happen and I get the answer of no, I like to go back with solutions. Okay, well, that didn't work, so let's see how we can make it work, right? We're at a no, let's try and change that to a yes. And I think that's what the business community needs in a council member, is somebody that's not just going to take no for an answer. If this is something you want and this is something that I agree with and I align with, I will work with the business community to make it happen. Saying no to me is very interesting, right? You say no, and I'm like, well, let's see how we can get that to a yes. I've never been somebody that takes the answer of no. If it's a good idea and I think it's going to benefit the city, I'm going to make it happen. And then, secondly, I'm innovative. I'm resourceful. I like to think outside the box. I like, everybody has, oh, well, we've always done it that way, or oh, this is always how it's been done. Let's look at things differently. Let's be innovative here. I don't. The status quo is obviously there for a reason, but let's look at how we can do things differently. There's always a new way to do things, and I think that's what also goes with being resilient, right? If somebody says no, okay, well, let's look at different ideas on how we can get that to be a yes. And then I said courageous. I think that's important, right? And sometimes when you're standing alone, you got to be courageous on council. If I feel that if I align with something and the rest of the council doesn't, and I'm the only one voting no, at the end of the day, I'm knowing I'm voting my conscience and I'm voting my heart, and I'm going to stand true to that. And I'm not just going to vote one way because everybody's voting that way. And so I think that that's important, is that, I'm courageous, I'm resourceful, and I'm resilient. And I think that that's what the business community expects and deserves in a council member, somebody that's going to be a fighter for them, somebody that's going to be resilient and always work with them to get to where they need to be.
So let's talk about, and this is kind of a two-part question, how do you collaborate with others, number one? Mm-hmm. And then number two, how do you utilize that ability to really strengthen those community partnerships in the city to really in the best interest of Chandler?
Absolutely. I think being collaborative is one of the most important things on council, because you have to work with all sorts of people at all sorts of levels of government, and that's just it. That's really an important thing. And I tell people I have an endorsement page on my website, and I put on the website. It's not because I want to go around saying, oh, I'm endorsed by this person, I'm endorsed by that person. I like to say it's because I can show that I'm a collaborative community leader. I have the ability to work with other people, and even people that don't agree with me, right? And I think that's, when people hear politics, they kind of start to get turned off, because in 2024, politics is a very diversive, nasty field. And I try to tell people, look, at the city council, we do things differently. We've always been a city that collaborates. We've had councils where, I know it's nonpartisan, but, we've had ones that are registered with one party, and on the other side, we're registered with others, and they come together for the betterment of Chandler. And I think that's why I like the city council level. So when you're door knocking and, oh, politics, and they slam the door in your face, I'm like, wait, just give me a minute, give me a minute. It's city council. It's the most local level, and we represent you. We're here for you, and we're here for the betterment of the city. So it's politics, but it's not politics in the sense where you're, it's the whole rigmarole, and it's more of we're here for the community, right? We're going to sit down with the chamber. We're going to sit down with the businesses. We're going to sit down with our legislators, our congressmen, our governor, and we're going to sit down with them, and we're going to make sure that Chandler has what we need to move forward as a city and to continue growing. And that's why I love Chandler. It's a great city. I am Chandler proud. I have, whenever I'll be sitting in Gilbert Chamber meetings, and sometimes they'll say, oh, well, the town of Gilbert is doing this. I'm like, not not as good as Chandler. Because I think Chandler is a great city, and I think we need to have Chandler pride. Because at the end of the day, this is for the betterment of Chandler. And if I have to sit down with somebody that I don't agree with or don't even particularly like, that's okay, because it's for Chandler at the end of the day. It's for the residents. The residents expect that, and the residents deserve to live in a city where we have the ability to work collaboratively.
So I'm going to expand a little bit about that.
Yes.
So how do you perceive the role of local government? Because this is a two-part question too. So I'll let you answer that, and then I'll throw the second part in.
Absolutely. So I think I touched on it a little earlier, but I perceive the role of local government as number one, being your representation. If you have a problem as a Chandler resident, and it may not be something I can fix, I, as your council member, will represent you. And I've seen that before. I've seen council members of other cities while I'm testifying at the Capitol. There's sometimes council members from other cities, like Fountain Hills is a great city, where I'm sitting in the audience of a committee and they get up and they say, I'm council member, I'm here with some of my constituents who have asked me to come and speak about this bill, da 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 da. And I sat there and I go, wow, that's a great, that's great. Because this person is, yes, an elected official of their town or city, but they're not just stopping at that. They're going with their residents to the Capitol and testifying on their behalf for their town. And I sat there and I was just so, like, I went up and I shook the guy's hand and I met him and I was like, I was a fan. I was a big fan. I should have asked for his autograph because I sat there. And I'm like, that's really awesome that he went with his constituents to the Capitol and represented them. And I think that right there is picture perfect of a local government, is we're here to bat for you. You may not be able to call the governor's line directly and say, hey, I have this problem and I want to try and get it fixed. But I, as your council member, can call and say, hey, this is the office of Chandler City Council Member Joseph Yang. I'm reaching out to the governor's office on behalf of one of my constituents because they have this problem and I'd like to see that addressed. And I think it carries more weight when it comes from the office of council or from an elected office of that city. And I perceive that to be local government, is we're here to represent you, we're here to serve you, and we're accessible for you. And I think that's the biggest thing about a council member, is to be accessible. That's why I give out my personal number. I have a line that goes straight to my cell phone, and I give everybody that phone number. And I actually had somebody call it, and they go, oh, you answered. I'm like, yeah, this is me. And they go, oh, all right, I'm going to vote for you just because you answered, because they didn't think I would answer. Because he said he tries all the phone numbers on all the signed things, and it's always a voicemail or it's always a thing. And I'm like, nope, this is me. I'm like, I give you my number. I said, it'll come to my cell. And I think people are like so shocked, and I tell them, that number's not going to change when I win election, when I'm a sitting councilman, that number's not going to change. And so they're like, oh, wow, okay, I'm going to vote for you just because you answered the phone. And I thought that was so funny. But I think that a lot of people are so not used to their elected officials responding, and to me that's something that's really important because and I got this great story about our current mayor and council. When I was 15 and volunteering for the library and whatnot, I went to an event and I saw the mayor, and I'm like, oh wait, mayor, that's a cool pin. I wonder, where'd you get it? And he goes, I got it. Do you want one? I'm like, yeah, I want a pin. And so he gave me his phone number, and I texted him, and I met him at City Hall, and he gave me a pin. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm just this 15-year-old that volunteers for the library, and I just met the mayor, and I got a pin from the mayor, and that was like the biggest thing to me. And I want to be that for somebody else. I want somebody to tell that story one day. It's like, oh, I just messaged Councilmember Yang, not thinking anything was going to happen, and he responded, and he helped me out, and he got me what I needed in the city. And I think that's the purest form of local government right there.
So Chandler, so the second part of that question is, Chandler continues to be a global hot spot. And what does the role of the local government look like in reference to economic development? And you touched on it a little bit in workforce here in Chandler.
Yeah, so the local government is vital to the workforce development and the economic development of a city, right? We're the ones that approve the zoning permits. We're the ones that approve the planning and zoning stuff, and we've got to, and that's important, right? Because Chandler is reaching 98% build out. All the land that's developed that we have to develop is coming to be developed, and so we need to look at and I say workforce development because that's our next step, right? It's not like we can develop more land, but we can develop the workforce and our economy. And I think Chandler, like you said, is a global hotspot. We've got Intel and that price corridor right there, and we've got strong partnerships with them. And I look forward to continuing those partnerships. And that's just it. Is sitting down and with them and saying, hey, let's look at what we can do to keep Chandler growing. And for me, That's my biggest thing is workforce development, because we've got to get them in and get them experience and get them involved. We've got great programs in the city like the Mayor's Youth Commission, Leaders in Training, police and fire cadet programs. I actually have 2 friends that were in the fire cadet program who are now firefighters now. And so it's programs like that that I think really drive our workforce forward. And I want to make those more robust, right? I want to take some of those and see how we can innovate them and make them better so that we can harbor a strong work ethic. And I really want to work with the chamber and the school district to make more of those programs, because right now we have about 4. Leaders in Training only runs during breaks: summer break, spring break, winter break, and fall break. I want to see something like that maybe year round. I want to see something like that partnered with the chamber. I want to see something like that partnered with the school district. And all of us working together to develop a strong work ethic in the next generation, make them want to come back and help them find jobs in the city. And that's how we keep, I think, that good circle going where we have a strong workforce. And I think that strong workforce is going to directly attribute to economic development and growing the business community of Chandler, because you want them to know, well, if I come to Chandler as a business owner or as a corporation, I'm going to get help from the city getting employees. They're going to be able to help me. I can call them up and say, hey, I love your programs that you're doing. I want to work with the chamber and I want to sponsor them and I want to sponsor these programs and I want to keep growing them. And that's, I think, how we create strong partnerships and continue to develop our economy and our workforce.
And the chamber does have a very strong leadership program. In fact, it's in its 35th year,
Yes.
and it's award-winning. And we do have that career portal on our site. So
I know. You guys do great work.
So let's switch gears a little
Okay.
bit. I want to talk a little bit about there is a national rise of retail theft that is going on across the country, as well as cybersecurity and other threats too. How should law enforcement engage with the business community?
I think that's one of my top priorities for the campaign is supporting public safety. So I love that question. I love that we're switching gears to that, because I actually work for a local police department, and I serve currently Chandler on the police commission. So I'm very pro law enforcement. I'm very passionate about our law enforcement. So I think that when it comes to law enforcement, and I think that it's all about bringing resources. I think Chandler has done a really good job of crime prevention and connecting the community with the police department and fostering good relationships. And I want to continue that. I want to look at growing the crime prevention we have in our city, because crime prevention is all about stopping crimes before they occur. And I think that, getting them in and connecting the resources, and I always say the youth too, right? A big thing that's affecting our community on top of cyber crimes and retail theft is teen violence. And I want to bring the resources to the teens and the youth and also to the business community, right? And our police department does a great job of that. We have a new chief, so I'm excited to see how he grows our crime prevention. I'd love to, sit down and work with him to see how we can continue that. We've got a very robust volunteer program within the department where they drive around and do battery jumps and vehicle lockouts. So I think that, that's a great resource to have. But also getting out to the businesses. I think a lot of businesses are not aware of some of the resources our police department has. I had a business owner and I said, hey, there's a customer out there locked out of their vehicle. Oh, nothing we can do. I'm like, oh, did you know the police department has actually units, volunteer and police aides that can come out and do vehicle unlocks? He goes, no, I didn't. I'm like, oh, well, do you have their non-emergency line? No, here, let me look it up. And I'm like, you don't have the non-emergency line? I'd love to, and even something as so small as just creating a little card, with the police department's logo and the non-emergency line and, and all the things, and maybe the website to submit a police report online. And I think these are resources that some of the business owners don't understand. And for me, a big thing that I see is within our Asian community. Is sometimes that language barrier is also a challenge. They get really anxious and nervous calling the police department because their English might not be as good, and so they get really nervous, and so they just don't report the crime. And so they think that not reporting the crime is easier than having to call and go through that process. And so I think making sure that the business owners understand that there's a nice streamlined process and getting small little things, even that small little note that says, hey, Chandler Police Department is here for you. To report a crime, go to this website, call this number, the non-emergency number, and obviously 911 if there's an emergency, but I think even having that would be good, and I'd love to see more community conferences. I know our crime prevention actually does little meetups for residents who are interested in more securing their home through, it's something, and I can't remember the acronym right now, but it's basically using natural environments to prevent crime. right? Having cactuses in front of your windows, having rose bushes up in your backyard, keeping a clear backyard and cameras up so that you can see things, and that alone is going to deter crime. And I think 80%. I think 80%. Don't quote me on that, but around 80% of vehicle break-ins are people don't lock their doors. I mean, well, I've been on ride-alongs before, and we'll go and they'll say, "Oh, somebody broke into my car. They stole this and this. Did you lock the car?" Well, no, I thought it was, I didn't think that they'd steal stuff. And well, there you go. And I think stuff like that, getting the business community together and saying, hey, here's simple ways that you can prevent crime at your business. Putting up cameras, putting up signs that say, smile, you're being on camera. Different things like that, and bringing the resources to the business community. And I think empowering them to do crime prevention on their own. I think a lot of business owners are just kind of like, oh, the PD does their thing, I do my thing, and if there's a crime, I call them. But there's a lot of ways that we can be proactive. And that cybercrime, with 2024, with the new age of technology, there's always, whatever's used for good, you can always use for bad. And so I think that, it's, like I said, a lot of resources, and that comes on with the teens and the business community, making sure that they're aware of some of the scams that are going on. Some of these scams are really, they seem very real. I mean, I just fell prey to one for only $30, but I fell prey to one on social media. And so they're getting better. And I think, like I said, having the resources available, whether it's some kind of little pamphlet that we send out to all the business owners saying, hey, the PD is here for you. Here's all the information. Here's the latest scams that we're seeing. And here's what we're going to do about it. And here's what you can do to prevent it to happening from your business. And I think that just that small step could help go a long way and empower our business owners to really understand what they can do. And I think a lot of them just don't understand the resources. Business owners are always out there all day with their business. They don't have time to go online and look up what they can do to prevent crime. I think if the PD were to, just send a simple resource to them and then empower them to have the resources available.
Okay. We have a number of other questions, and
Okay.
we've got just about 5 minutes left. So
All right.
let's talk a little bit. I'm going to switch gears again. Proposition 479 will extend the half-cent transportation tax here for Maricopa County on the November ballot, the upcoming November ballot. What is your position on the ballot measure in Chandler transportation, and why?
So I can't give an answer to the proposition because I haven't done research on it, and that's one thing that I'm always going to commit myself as a candidate and as a council member is that I'm never going to vote on anything or give an answer without doing proper research. So I haven't really campaign trail. I haven't really had time to do much of any research on anything other than Chandler. However, I will do more research on it, and I will follow up with the chamber on an answer. For me. When we talk about raising taxes, I'm always a little hesitant because, I have to do my research, but also because we're talking about the people's hard-earned money. I know, I think everybody knows that we earn this money, we have to do hard work to earn the money. And I think when we, the government, take some of that, we have to be very cautious, and we have to be conscious when we take it. And we have to make sure it's going to the right places. I think Chandler does really well on transportation, so I'd be interested to look at that. But I'm usually, when it comes to raising taxes, I usually err on the side of no. However, like I said, I have to do research because there's some instances where I'm like, oh, that's not bad. And if it's, like you said, 0.1% for what we're getting, seems like a good plan. But usually I err on the side of caution because this is the hard-earned money of the people.
So as Chandler continues to grow, downtown development has become a real focal point for economic revitalization, community enhancement. It's kind of that hidden gem, one of our many gems here in Chandler. So what specific strategies would you implement to balance both the historic preservation as well as modernization of the downtown area? And then what's your overall vision for downtown?
Absolutely, that's a great question. I love downtown. Downtown is the place to be. However, I have said this before that I wouldn't be opposed to some modernization. When we look at, and I'll just use downtown Gilbert or Old Town Gilbert as an example. They've got so much foot traffic. I mean, you can't even drive down there anymore because there's always people walking across. And I'd love to see something like that in Chandler. And I always go back to this, but it's connecting the next generation and building that bridge with the youth. What can we see right now? My vision for Chandler is making it a little younger, right? Bringing in some different restaurants and supporting different restaurants from coming in here that the young people will support, and getting out more different events. I think downtown, Old Town Gilbert has various events that the business communities come out and together they put on. And so I'd look at that. But also we have to keep in mind, like you said, historic preservation. Chandler, we've just had our centennial a few years ago. And so we're now 100 years old, or 103, give or take a few years. And so we need to make sure, and San Marcos, that's a great historic preservation. I would never dream of doing anything with San Marcos because, like you said, they themselves are renovating and innovating their own business. And so I love seeing them, and I love the history that they have. When you walk through the halls of San Marcos, you can see Chandler's history is there. I believe they're one of the first buildings in Chandler as well. And so I love downtown. But that's what I'd like to do, is I like to see it a lot younger, maybe do some more events for the next generation and the teens of the community, and get them out and more around downtown Chandler.
Okay. Unfortunately, I think this is going to have to be our last question. We haven't gotten through them all, but as Chandler experiences ongoing construction project, the business community often faces disruptions that could ultimately impact their business. How do you best facilitate completion of those projects on a timely manner?
For me, and I think that I've seen this brought up before on council, is obviously you don't want to go after businesses, but at the same time, when you have a deadline, as the city, when we approve it, we need to make sure that construction companies adhere to deadlines. I haven't looked at the Chandler's numbers, but I know in Gilbert, and I've looked a little at Mesa, a lot of construction companies are over some of their completion dates. When you drive through and you go, wow, it's been a long time. And you look at their completion dates, some of them are over. I haven't looked at Chandler's numbers, but I know that there's construction in front of my neighborhood that's been going on for a while. But making sure that they stick to their completion. And if that's a stipulation we've got to add in there, that it's $10 a day till it's fixed, then so be it. Because like you said, it's a big disruption, not just for the business community, but for the residents in general, But I'd also support looking at construction companies that are willing to work overnight. I think that there's some construction companies that do overnight. It may cost a little more, but it's way less disruption to the residents in the business community. And it's better for the construction workers because they're working at night when it's cooler.
So I'm going to ask you to kind of wrap it up. And is there anything that I didn't ask you that you feel is important for the business community to know and why they should vote for you?
I think you've covered it all. I think you've got it. But I'm really excited to work with the chamber and the school district to continue developing our workforce and continue Chandler's reputation of being the premier city for businesses and corporations of all sizes.
Thank you for joining us, Joseph Yang, candidate for Chandler City Council. Thanks again for joining us.